I'd like to ask you about what your thought is 6 months into a war that the president initially said would last 4 to 6 weeks. Are we closer to the beginning or the end?
This has been a heavy toll, I think, on certainly the military and their family members. We've lost 18 service members. We've had over 750 wounded. And this is a heavy toll for them. And if you assess where we were before we went into Iran, where we are today, I think you're going to see a stark contrast that has achieved nothing but a cost of living crisis. And right here in Florida, those choices, that reckless choice to go to war with Iran has created a situation for people that are unable to afford to live day to day. I just received information and found out that Floridians have paid almost $4 billion more for gas. Right here in my area, it's already still $1 higher than it was before our war with Iran. And the cost of living crisis is very real here because we are a coastal economy. And the people that I'm talking to every single day, boots on the ground, they're telling me that they feel like they can't survive, that they feel like they've been forgotten. And this is exacerbated when we make a choice to go to war without the proper planning and certainly without a concrete strategic objective.
At this point, though, the administration is trying to get diplomacy back on track. We heard from the U.S. Treasury Department earlier this week that there is going to be more economic pressure on Iran. At this point, do you agree with that approach from this White House that they should opt to use these other tools instead of, say, restarting kinetic action?
Those tools should have been used on the front end. We should not have gone into the kinetic action. And the members that have been killed in action, I just want to let you know that I've been on the ground in many of those places, and where those service members were killed in Port Shuaibah in Kuwait, I had been in that building. And the fact that that building wasn't hardened enough or that they were removed before the attacks came in, I believe that's a dereliction of duty. Diplomacy should always come before using our military. That is our first weapon of choice, is diplomacy. And then along those lines are some of the economic sanctions and economic tools that we should be using. And that should have been used all along.
I know that you've been deployed repeatedly throughout what was a 27-year Army career, General. You also spent some time in a very different capacity, which I'd like to ask you about here, having dealt with the cyber threat that's facing this country, and something that we hear about quite a bit more recently because of this. You were an advisor to the U.S. Army Cyber Command after you left active duty, and there is a great concern that Iran's offensive capability could interfere with municipal water sources and any number of things that we take for granted. Do you worry about this escalating beyond the battlefield into an asymmetric space like cyber?
We absolutely should take that very seriously. That's always on the table for our adversaries. And it's not just Iran, it's Russia and China and North Korea. We got to be very clear-eyed about that. That cybersecurity is always
capable of defending against it?
I think we are. We have some of the most amazing capabilities out there. But there are new ways that are being created, particularly with artificial intelligence. So we have to keep our guard up at all times and keep advancing our own capability to not just defend ourselves, but to detect those threats as well.
Well, part of this is that the Pentagon is asking for more resources to help bulk up capabilities. When it comes to the conflict in Iran, the administration is asking for about $67 billion in supplemental funding. If you were elected to Congress, would you vote for that?
I would take a hard look at the defense budget. We need to be modernizing in ways that are for future wars. And we've seen the future of warfare right now. Drones, cyber, and we need to be investing heavily in that. Those particular lines of ability to attack or defend ourselves. And so I think that one of the areas that we need to make sure that we're doing is we're not overspending in legacy systems, that we need to make sure that our alignment of our dollars, because it's Congress's job. It's Congress's job to raise an army. It's Congress's job to tax and to spend, that we should have very strict oversight over every dollar that's expended, that's planned to be expended, and then doing follow-up with that. And that's actually not going on in my mind. When we give non-compete contracts to companies, or that we're not tracking every dollar that's being spent out there, That's some due diligence that we need to make sure that we're adhering to every single day. And when you don't, it invites corruption. And we're seeing quite a bit of that going on every single day in the administration. And my counterpart, the Congresswoman Luna, is part of that problem. She's invested in a donor's company, in one of her own donors' company. And in the military, we have some of the highest ethical standards out there. And I want to see those same high ethical standards applied to members of Congress, the Supreme Court, the administration, cabinet members across the board, because we owe that to the American people. And in part of our job of oversight of spending their tax dollars is making sure that we are adhering to the highest ethical standards.